Last week I made a video about how anyone could make their own music, however elegant or playful that might have turned out. As many people would have noticed, the only thing I really did in that video was teach people about the pentatonic scale, a set of 5 notes that basically never sound bad. But how is it possible that smashing hands down on these 5 notes sounds better than these 5 notes? Or any notes for that matter? That's what I'll be exploring today, the meat of how the pentatonic scale actually works, and also how it's the foundation of the major scale. To answer this question, I'll be explaining 3 things. First, consonants and dissonants. Second, the harmonic series. And third, where the 5 notes actually come from. Let's start with consonants versus dissonants. The one-word explanation for these terms would be consonants, good, dissonants, bad. But as with all things, there's a little bit more nuance to it. Consonants and dissonants act like a scale or a series, with harmonies fitting on the scale of more consonant to more dissonant. The more dissonant harmonies are, the more they clash with each other, and the more consonant harmonies are, the more they blend with each other. If we look at the harmonies or intervals of the pentatonic scale, we find that most of them trend towards the more consonant side, with the most dissonant one being the major second. Now you might think that because dissonance makes things sound bad, we should take out that major second so that it makes it even easier to play things that sound nice. But the problem with that is that dissonance is a key part to what makes music emotional. Notes flowing between clashing and coming back together is exactly how music is so good at replicating complex emotions, and that's why the whole explanation of consonants, good, dissonance, bad, doesn't really hit the nail on the head. And it's also why the pentatonic scale doesn't really sound bad. Fundamentally, it's almost completely notes that sound nice together, but there is that little bit of clash that gives it the potential to be interesting, whilst also not being so much clash that you break people's ears. So there we have our answer. The pentatonic scale sounds good because it's got a lot of consonants and a limited amount of dissonance, which means that it doesn't ever sound bad, but not so little dissonance that it becomes boring. It's the Goldilocks scale. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and...
Wait!
What?
The video isn't over yet!
Well, we answered the question.
No, don't get it.
But this video isn't over yet because we can go even deeper into why the pentatonic scale sounds nice. With the power of maths! No, wait, don't go. I promise this is interesting. I'll even tell a story to hide the maths. Now imagine this. You're in ancient Greece and you're just going out for a walk for some fresh air to process your thoughts. As you walk, you hear the blacksmiths working away. Ding, ding, ding. Hold on, you think to yourself, listening closer. That sounds nice, you say under your breath in surprise. After all, usually when they're banging away on their anvils, it sounds horrible. But this time, it might be adding to the calm of your walk. However, when a third blacksmith comes out and starts hitting on his anvil, it sounds horrible again and disturbs the peace of the evening. Curious, you go out and you weigh the hammers, and you find that the ones that sound nice together have a very simple ratio. However, the ones that sound terrible have an extremely complicated ratio. This gives you an idea, and you invent this. Well, okay, Pythagoras probably didn't invent the acoustic bass, and he also probably didn't come up with the idea of music being maths by hearing people hitting hammers on anvils, but he might have reinvented the monochord, which is an ancient single-stringed instrument, and I don't have one, but I do have this E string. Now, when I pluck the string, it vibrates at 40 hertz. In other words, it's vibrating at 40 times a second. But it isn't just vibrating at 40 times per second. It's also vibrating at 80 hertz. This is because when I pluck the string, the whole string is vibrating at 40 hertz, but it's also being divided into 2 equal parts, and with half the weight, they vibrate at 2 times the hertz, aka 80 hertz. This can be confusing at first, but I can prove it by plucking the string and then putting my finger on the halfway point. This means that the whole string can no longer vibrate, but the two halves vibrating at 80 Hz can, which means that you only hear the 80 Hz. The same is true when the string is split into thirds, fourths, fifths, and so on. This is the harmonic series, and it ranges from more simple ratios to much more complicated ratios. In other words, it ranges from more consonant ratios to much more dissonant ratios. As you go through smaller and smaller partitions of the string, we also get quieter and quieter harmonics. This means that the harmonics become basically inaudible before you even reach the point of hearing the super complicated ratios and therefore super dissonant ratios. And on most instruments, the harmonics are so quiet that you can't even hear them as separate tones. Instead, they just add to the whole tone of the instrument. But they very much are there, and their existence is not just why these 5 notes sound nice, but also how we find them in the first place. If you pay attention, you can tell that the second harmonic and the first harmonic are the same notes, just with an octave apart. However, the third harmonic is a brand new note, and it has a ratio of 3/2, aka 1.5 times. It's also known as a perfect fifth. So if we start on F sharp like I did in last week's video, and then we increase the pitch by 1.5 times, going up a perfect fifth, we reach C sharp, the second nicest sounding harmonic, besides playing the same note again. If we repeat this with C sharp and go up to another perfect fifth, we reach G sharp, then we reach D sharp, then A sharp, and then F, but F sounds bad next to F sharp. So we'll stop at A sharp, and suddenly we have our 5 magic notes of the pentatonic scale. If you were to instead do this starting on C for the C major pentatonic scale, you would get C, G, D, A, and E. So now you know some of the mysteries and the maths behind the pentatonic scale. But I also said that I'd be covering how we find the major scale in this video as well. To do that, simply stop running away from dissonance, embrace the F, and why don't you go down a perfect fifth to find B? Or in the case of C major, continue going up to find B and go down 1 to find F. And there you have it, how the pentatonic scale sounds nice and how it and the major scale are made. However, simply finding major doesn't really do it enough credit. It's the most popular scale in Western music, but this video's gone on long enough, so that'll have to wait until next week. For now, go and experiment because I have a new instrument to play around with.